but nothing is happening. So that is why I'm thinking it's better if somebody from your end can share it. I have sent it through WhatsApp. I hope you have received it by now. Yes, a very good afternoon to you all, my dear participants. Usually, I think this must be the first time that such a hitch is happening to me. And I am so fortunate to have a partner and a dear colleague in Professor Manoj that now he is sharing. So the topic that I have chosen from the two that have been selected for me will be teaching strategies. I think we all as teachers already have a very rough idea, a good idea.
Madam,
Yes.
1 minute. Let me introduce you first to the
Yes, please.
participant, then we will start.
Thank you, please.
So,
I deeply appreciate.
So, dear participant, I am extremely sorry as a coordinator of this program, and some technical issue happened. Madam tried, and we are not able to succeed. But finally, I appreciate Madam efforts. She can simply say the technical problems are there, I'm not able, but she tried, and finally we are able to reach in that level. So thank you so much. Today we have Professor Lynda. Madam Lynda is a professor in Department of Education, now School of Education, a senior professor, and very active, always very helpful to us for this type of conducting this type of the work. So thank you so much, madam. I will not take much time now. I think my PPT is my madam visible, no?
I hope it is visible. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, it is.
Yeah.
I hope the others can also see.
Yeah,
it
yeah,
is visible to me.
So yeah. So madam, now you we can go ahead.
So I will try not to waste so much time. Already I feel I have wasted much time already. I was supposed to start at 3, but now it is 3:10 already, as I can see. So dear participants, from the outset, I would like to apologize for the hitch that happened this afternoon because of me. Clearly, we cannot foresee our future. My computer at the department broke down and I had to send it for repair. Until this morning, it could not be repaired. I brought my laptop and then my laptop could not be connected to the university Wi-Fi. So immediately after I completed my classes in the department, I went home. And on my way home, there was a family crisis. And because of that, I could not take the first class. Whoever it was who took my place for the first afternoon session today, I am deeply appreciative of his efforts. I know how difficult it can be to suddenly be told to take a class because, frankly speaking, faculty induction programs are not simple. They are serious. They are not like, master's or PhD coursework classes where you were standing before your students or your scholars. You were in a faculty induction program, you were standing before your fellow faculty, you were standing before your colleagues, because you all are my colleagues. And for that, we usually like to, prepare ourselves much beforehand so that we will be able to present, a good program that you and us will be able to benefit all from. However, as I said earlier, all my plans crashed this afternoon because of the family crisis. However, God is good, and I am thankful that Professor Manoj was able to manage without me and that he was able to invite someone else. And I hope the afternoon's first session was fruitful for all of you. And on that note, I will simply continue with the plan I have made for the second part of today's 2 lectures, which is teaching strategy. So it is already clearly written here what a strategy is. Sometimes we have our strategy, like I said this morning, having a strategy is very helpful, I think, because today afternoon's happenings was a very clear indication for me that planning ahead, making a strategy with you may not know what is going to happen in the future, but planning ahead, knowing what is going to happen in the future, without knowing what is going to be happening in the future, is something that is beneficial. Because had I not planned ahead for this afternoon's lecture, I know I clearly would not have been able to do justice. So because of planning that I had been fortunately been able to do beforehand, I have been able to, I am now able to stand before you. And when we say strategy, it simply means a plan of action, how the ends will be achieved by the means, isn't it? How the ends will be achieved by the means. We are interested in how we will achieve our goals, and what sort of actions we will need to take up in order to meet our goals, isn't it? So by that is what we mean by strategy. And then in the world of teaching, how do we understand? How do we understand teaching? Teaching is a specialized application of skills, knowledge, attributes. All of these are designed to provide a unique service to meet the educational needs of the individual and of the society. So, therefore, even the ones who have not yet been initiated, even the ones who have not had any formal training in teaching, already know that through teaching, we impart, the teacher tries to impart his knowledge, and the learner tries to take anything and everything they can get from the teachers, so that they will benefit, so that they too will be able to pour out of their hearts what they have learned through the teacher. That is why teaching is a non-stop process wherein the teacher teaches. There will be circumstances where the teacher will also be learning from the learners, and the learners will then pass on their learning to their very own learners. So like that, it doesn't stop. I was taught by my professors, I was taught by my teachers, and then now I am trying to, swim on my own. So sometimes on days like this afternoon, there are difficulties where I find myself at sea, clearly at sea, because opening my computer, which had not been switched on for a very, very long time, maybe one year or so. But thankfully, I think Apple is a very good product. So it's working fine, except for the fact that the application, I think, is a bit outdated, so it cannot show my slides to you as I would have loved to show. Then when you combine the two words, strategy and teaching, what do you get? We let me try to explain through the slides what we mean by teaching strategy. A teacher, when he or she talks about teaching strategy, is talking about the methods, the techniques, the procedures, and the processes that a teacher uses during instruction. For example, this is the online mode. So therefore, we are using an application which is called Zoom. And in order to make it more interactive, you have the chat box and the question and answer box also. And besides that, the teacher, most of the time, she or he makes use of the slides, so that even when the audio fails, at least you have the video, you have the site to depend on, so that your learning will be more meaningful. So we use, as I said, we use methods, we use certain techniques, we use certain procedures, depending on the need of the hour, depending on what is needed by the students, depending on what is manageable by the institution, by the school, by the university, by the professional college or the academic college. We use different kinds of instructional materials. In many ways, the instructional materials are also a part of teaching strategy. The teacher may use different kinds of instructional materials based on the level of his students also, in order to make his teaching more meaningful. So it's generally recognized that teaching strategies are multidimensional, and their effectiveness depends on the context in which they are applied. Sometimes the teacher may simply use, everyday equipment. She may also, or he may also make use of laboratory equipment. He or she may be demonstrating, or he or she could be performing real laboratory experiments. And in other cases, he or she may just be explaining what is to be explained, so on and so forth. The teacher tries to do whatever is at hand to make it the utmost experience for students. So that is why teaching strategies are very, very important. You may be a master's in any given subject. It could be mathematics, it could be sciences, it could be art, it could be history. But unless and until you have a teaching strategy, you will never ever be able to be a successful teacher. In order to be a successful teacher in any field, in any given field, regardless of the subject, you need to have a strategy. You need to have a strategy. I remember one professor saying that on a special day, he would be wearing a certain dress code. He would be wearing a certain dress code, and the students by then would know from the way he dressed, from the reputation that he had, from the reputation that he had assumed throughout the years, that when he wore a particular dress, when he wore a particular, get up, the students would know that he was serious on that day. So like that, some teachers, they have their own teaching strategies. Some of them may be fun, some of them may not be so fun. Like some teachers, they try to take the roll call at the beginning and then some at the end of the lecture, and then some they like to draw funny pictures on the whiteboard, some they simply use the PowerPoints, and then in that way, depending on the feedback that you get from your students. And remember, you may not always be getting the feedback from your students as you would have loved to, but you need to read their expressions. You need to understand how they are responding to your lectures so that you will be able to make adjustments accordingly. That is the work of the teacher. It's not just about, imparting whatever you have done. Now, I know all of these things and I am sharing with you all of the things that I have learned. That's it. My part is done. So that is not how a teacher acts. We are trying to encourage our learners how to participate, how to connect with us, connect with their friends. And we try to generally add excitement to the content being delivered. Sometimes the contents that we deliver can be very, very boring also. In my time, I have taught a varied number of subjects, from comparative education to statistical education, statistics in education, to higher education in India, to educational planning, and also curriculum planning, so on and so forth. And I have, throughout the years, I have realized that some of the courses that we take up, some of the things that we teach, they can be really, really boring for the students. So in cases like that, it is the teacher's duty to try to make the, students participate as much as possible, to make them understand as much as possible, and also very, very important, to make them store in their minds and understanding maximum of what is being taught and discussed on a particular day, so that at some point of time, when they become teachers like you and I, they will be able to recall a certain day, a certain lecture, when a very, very important point was being discussed. In that way, you will be unconsciously helping your students to grow as teachers, if teaching is what they want to do. And also in their chosen fields. Maybe they want to become professionals in different fields. Maybe they want to, become businessmen. Maybe they want to, some of your students, they might want to stay at home and become mothers, taking care of the family, so on and so forth. So regardless of any career they choose for their future, a very good teaching strategy will always go a long way in helping your students. That is why it is important to have a strategy. It could be simple, it may be a bit complex, depending on the students you are standing before. It's always good to have a good teaching strategy. And kinds of teaching strategy. Now let us look into the kinds of teaching strategy. The first is the teacher-centered strategy. The teacher here plans what is to be taught, and students learn whatever has been planned by the teacher, regardless of their opinions or readiness to learn. So there is a syllabus, a set syllabus that the teacher has prepared himself or herself for, and she simply carries on and administers it to the students without asking whether the students are ready or not. So this is a kind of teacher-centered strategy which works in many ways, and I think, if I am not mistaken, 80% of the time teaching is teacher-centered. The topic is pre-selected, the university has already selected a set of strategy, and the teacher simply goes home and prepares himself or herself in order to extract as much from a particular point to spend 45 or 1 hour of time, of the student's time, and learn something from what is being shared on that particular point. So this is teacher-centered, but as I said earlier, this is something which is premeditated. This is something which has been preset. So therefore, when we say teacher-centered, we should also remember that there really is nothing that is truly teacher-centered. All right, there really is nothing that is truly teacher-centered. It is something that the teacher himself, when we say teacher-centered, for any learning topic to be teacher-centered, the teacher has to be the one to prepare it. But however, in our respective institutions, we have these collection of syllabi that the teacher has the duty to select and impart to his students. So it cannot really be teacher-centered. But as I said, as far as the teaching strategy is concerned, regardless of the syllabus that is to be learned, as far as the, for example, the teacher is an English teacher, and they are going to learn poetry. And if they are going to learn poetry, how do they want to learn? How does he want to teach? Will he make the students read? Will he himself read and act it out? Or will he ask the students to act it out? Or will he simply go into the question and answer? So depending on what he wants, depending on what the student would, depending on what the teacher is comfortable with, his teaching strategies will also change. So the teacher plans what is to be taught, and the student learns whatever has been planned by the teacher. And then the second is small groups and large groups. In this case, students are broken into small groups where each group is given a specific topic to learn. They are then put into a large group where each small group gets a chance to share what they have learned. This is a fantastic kind of arrangements where in that small group, the teachers, they learn, the teachers, they learn what they are supposed to learn. And they not only learn what they are supposed to learn, but also they begin to have faith. The students begin to have faith in themselves, because not only do they learn, but they teach each other in these small groups. Because just imagine yourselves today standing in front of the whole class. You have done this before. This is what you do, as this is what we do as we are teachers. So just imagine asking them a rather complex question. Your students may not come up, but if you divide them into small groups, and if you simply assign to each group the duty to give an answer to a particular question that is being asked, I can guarantee you all that your students will deliver. Yes, yes.
I think you have to tell me not to shift the PPT, because I don't know when you explain.
All right. Okay, right now I'm in small groups and in large groups. Is it coming? Oh, the slides are not moving.
Yeah. Now my madam, same small group and large group. When you finish, just you say change the slide, I will change.
Okay, but the students are reporting that the slides are not moving. Are they moving now? Okay. I'm so grateful. I cannot see the slides. As I said earlier, the application that has been installed in this laptop must be very old because neither can I share nor can I see the slides. So I'm largely depending on memory also. Anyway, going back to what I was saying, we have small groups, and I am assuring you that when you divide them into groups and when you assign each of these groups to give an answer to that particular question that you want the answer for, I am telling you that your students will deliver. They certainly will deliver because in that small group, they have lost the inhibition which was there when you were there. Number one. Number two, they are among contemporaries, and among contemporaries, there is no fear. So they will be able to share what they know. And in fact, not only will they just be willing to share, but I'm telling you, they will be very, very enthusiastic to share what they know. And in that way, you will learn, the students will also learn, and there will be a beautiful process of learning from each other. My classes are, reflecting my computer screen, and I'm finding it a bit difficult. I hope you don't find it too difficult. So Professor Manoj, the next slide, please. Effective class discussions. Effective class discussions. So number one, we call them lectures, as we are having now. And why do we always resort to lectures? We even call each section of the timetable as a lecture. We don't call them a credit, we call them a lecture. So why do we do that? We do that because lecturing is what we do most of the time. So the teacher goes into the class, he or she gives, shares what he or she has already learned about a certain part of a topic, and then she shares. And she hardly or he hardly spends time to listen to the students, and hardly any time is spent to give them time to share what they think of the topic that has been discussed. And so ultimately it is very apt to call it a lecture, because lectures are what we do. And to be very frank, lectures are very, very effective. Why are they effective? You have seen generations of professionals, academicians, politicians, kings and queens that have benefited from lectures. So even today, when you see so many gifts of technology coming in, the old style lecture can never grow old. That is one thing. The other is a seminar. A seminar is, it's slightly more liberal in the sense that in seminars, the students are given a chance to express their ideas. The students are given chances to think of arguments to a certain point. I remember when there was this particular student who was a very, very good mathematician. And I will not tell you what he has grown up to be today, but if I tell you his name, I am sure most of my MzU participants today will be able to know who he is. So he was rather argumentative when he was a student. And then sometimes there were certain problems that were discussed in the class on mathematics, wherein he used to be, he used to be the first to work it out, solve that particular problem, and also sometimes even faster than the teacher himself. So although at that time, in those times, seminars were not held in general, but whenever there was a simple problem, his name would be called out, and he would be the one to solve that particular particular problem in front of the whole class. And I feel today he is mature and also successful, majorly because of those, although they were not called seminars, he was called out to stand in front of his class to solve that simple or sometimes not so simple mathematical problem. And since he was their friends, the students in that class were able to ask him questions, how he derived that particular answer, and he would be able to tell his friends in the language they understand how he derives that particular answer. So in that way, many times, more than interacting with the students, benefited more from interacting with him. So that is why seminars are very effective in their own way. The only thing is, I think most of us have come from colleges and universities. You understand how difficult it is to get answers, comments, questions, arguments from your students. And although in my own class, I hate to have arguments simply for the sake of arguments, these days I even accept arguments if they show that the students are paying attention, if they show that the students are serious in what is being discussed. So in that way, we really cannot even make a choice, because the students, they are very apathetic these days, isn't it? So most of the time they don't pay attention. Most of the time they simply wait for us to go out, isn't it? So to avoid that, seminars, I feel, are very, very useful, because in seminars they cannot help but take part, because they have to be the key people in charge. So seminars can be very, very effective teaching strategies. And then you have what you call the peer-to-peer dialogue. As I said, when you before I was discussing about the small group and then the large group discussion. So peer-to-peer dialogue is always easier rather than a teacher to student dialogue, a principal to students dialogue, a vice chancellor to students dialogue. Rather than that, the peer-to-peer dialogue is always easier, because most of them are from the same generation. They speak the same language. They are they are having similar interests. So therefore the peer-to-peer dialogue is much easier. So instead of spending too much energy explaining endlessly about a particular topic, sometimes crafty teachers also try to give more than 20 minutes of a 1-hour class to their students, so that the students will be able to share what they know, what they want to know from the teachers. And also sometimes the students themselves are very, very informative, so they are able to share what they themselves already know. I remember trying to share with my students. Remember I told you I used to take, and I do take, comparative education. So I remember one time when I was trying to share a comparative nature of American education system and Indian education system. So as I was explaining, I suddenly realized that my friend's daughter, she had spent the entire school age, her entire school age in America. So therefore she would know much more than I do regarding American education system, especially the 12K, the 1 to plus 12 years. So in that way, I realized that she would be able to explain much better than me. Although in age, she may be my daughter's age, but in experience, she had experienced the American education system. So for her, it was not difficult at all. So I started to give her some time to share, and she shared this in that talk. She shared her educational experience in America and the difficulties that she faced when she came to India regarding, subjects, regarding how they are approached, etc., etc. Next slide, please. So now let us look into the case-based. Now, I don't know what your disciplines are. I don't know what your subjects are, but a case-based teaching strategy is where students apply their knowledge to the real world scenarios, promoting higher levels of cognition. In my in my in my department, which is the Department of Education, for example, if we are going to study, let us say, special education, instead of simply going blindly into special education, what we do is we try to uh, first of all, what we do is we try to pay visits to special education centers. And if there are special education centers, good, well and fine. And also what we try to do is we also try to visit schools and find out whether special educators are being attached or not. So currently in India, the scenario is more for inclusive education, where special education is being imparted in the normal school mode, so that children with special needs may be able to benefit from their so-called normal friends. However, those things are most of the time not enough. So what we like to do is we like to pay special visits to the schools and institutions themselves, so that they can learn, so that the students will be able to understand and will be able to really see what the children with special needs are, what they look like, how they manage each day, what sort of shortcomings, so-called shortcomings they have regarding their physical features, or maybe sometimes their mental reasoning. In that way, instead of just learning about them, or instead of simply just trying to find out whether they are being taught separately or in a normal school, when the students actually go to the real institutions, to the real and sometimes interview the real agents of education in that field, they are able to glean so much more, because these are things that classroom teaching cannot reach. These are things that seminars cannot reach. These are practical things that workshops cannot reach. So therefore, case-based teaching strategy is when a small matter is taken up, it is being studied carefully from its inception to maybe changes that have taken place. So in that way, the teacher learns, the students learn. And case studies are very, very if I say common, that might not be a very good word to give, but they are successful. And lots of success stories of case studies have been found, not just on the, what I had just given as an example, not just for special children, but also for drug addiction, gender orientation. Today we have numbers of even I know you have come from from your names, from the list of names that I can see, you have come from different sections of India. So we now have gender issues, and instead of just talking about them, instead of just um, learning about them in theory, maybe through seminar or maybe through lectures in the classroom, a very, very effective way of understanding the real situation is through a case study, the case based study, wherein the student, many times on a one-on-one basis may have a chance to get to know a particular you know, a particular client or a particular victim or a particular sample of students, and get to know about their origin, how they have been here, why they are here. These kinds of studies are what have made many of the new teaching strategies possible. Next slide, please. This will be called digital learning. Um, actually, today also is referred to as online teaching and learning. But what we are really doing is what is called digital learning. So this is the interactive remote teaching using digital resources. Today, I'm making use of a digital resources. I'm making use of the computer. You all are also making use of your computers. So in a remote, although it is remote, we are each learning from each other. We are trying to, the COVID was a bad thing, but in many ways, it was also a good thing because it has taught us so many things, isn't it? That learning is possible. Even when we don't interact in person, learning is still possible. So all of these things the COVID has taught us. So I think one benefit of the COVID is that we now know that learning in a remote way can be meaningful if both ends of the learning process, the teacher, the taught, the trainees and the trainer, if they are serious about what is going on, if they are serious about the whole process, then it can be very, very interactive and it can be very, very beneficial. So as I said, what we are having is not through digital learning, but emergency digital interaction, so to speak. So I think all of us will agree that this is something which has become very, very essential in our everyday life. Many people now say that the webinar days are dead, the online learning days are dead, but we can find so many instances where they still are very much like today, where they still are very much in practice, and when they still are, are very much effective for the rest of us also. Then coming to the next point, we have the team-based learning. Has anyone heard of the TBL or team-based learning? May I know? You may write your answers in the chat box. Has anyone heard of the team-based learning? Okay, it's not a surprise, but team-based learning has become rather common in many educational fields. I don't know how the subjects or papers or courses are divided in your respective colleges or universities, but for team-based learning to happen, yes, it's sort of like a discussion, but let me first try to explain the team-based explanation or team-based teaching, as we call it. Sometimes, and most commonly, we call it team-based learning. Right, team-based learning. So it is a pedagogical strategy, as I have written, that engages student knowledge through individual testing and group collaboration. Following individual answers, students join teams and work through problems. Now, this is a very, very, short and sharp way of explaining the team-based learning. What we have in the team-based learning is a phenomenon it's not exactly a phenomenon, a situation in which two teachers can come together, minimum two teachers, because we should remember that when there are too many teachers involved, then they tend to crowd the classroom. And when they crowd the classroom, the students do not know where to focus their attention on. So therefore, in team-based learning, it is always good to have, not more than three teachers at one time. And the usual practice is for two teachers. For example, what you are going to learn about is team teaching. And in that team teaching, one teacher may go into the concept of team teaching, and the other teacher may go ahead and explain situations team teaching has succeeded. The first teacher can come back and make an example of team teaching, teaching strategies that can be used, and in that way team teaching can be made use of in the classroom without any additional resource, so that students will be able to focus their attention to both teachers, and that both teachers in one frame, that is in one platform, at the same time may be able to share their understanding, may be able to share their deep knowledge with the students at the same time. And in that way, students will be able to understand more about a certain concept, because, in many cases, students are being made to learn one section of a course from one teacher, another section of a course from another teacher, so on and so forth. So in team-based learning, what we do is we try to consolidate all of the points that are part of a course. And then two teachers I feel is the ideal for a team-based learning. Two teachers come in and they share their understanding, they share their ideas, their views regarding this. And in that way, the students also benefit. And in that way, the crossover from one part of a particular course and the second part of a particular course is often made easier in the team-based learning. And then we have the flipped classroom. I don't know whether you have heard of the flipped classroom or not. I will just read it out. In a flipped classroom, I hope Professor Manoj, you are changing the screens. In a flipped classroom, material typically explored in lecture is delivered outside of class through media like video lectures or digital modules. Class time then focuses on developing knowledge through active learning strategies like discussion or group activities. Flipping the classroom has been known to improve students' conceptual grasp of content beyond memorization and basic knowledge, and to improve the diversity and inclusivity of the classroom climate. So in a flipped classroom, when you flip something, what do? You flip it, isn't it? If I want to flip this pen, I will have to, sometimes it comes back upside down. So if I flip a coin, I raise it up and then I see what is up and what is down, isn't it? Maybe heads or maybe tails. So likewise, in a flipped classroom, we do not go in the usual manner of the teacher coming into the classroom, explaining certain concepts and giving homeworks and then going out. That is not what is happening in a flipped classroom. In flipped classroom, that normal process may also continue. But in many parts, in a flipped classroom, before the teacher explains things, she or he can simply share some slides, some information regarding the courses or the topic which is to be, discussed on a particular day. You read this beforehand. You read the story about the Mahabharata beforehand. I am giving you 2 days time. In the next class that we are going to discuss the Mahabharata. You are going to tell me the positive and the negative sides of the story. You are going to share with me the highlights of the story. You will have to tell me a summary of the whole Mahabharata through your preparation during these 2 days. Simple ways like that, the class is flipped. So the students, before the teacher comes in, they already know what is going to be taught. And it is not in the teacher's hand to decide what is to be taught in the class anymore. The students can ask questions. The students can choose to stand up for themselves and explain what they had read throughout the 2 days beforehand. And, in that way, the students are responsible. And when we are responsible, we do things, we act, we use our faculties, we use our brains, we act, we try to give our best because pride is involved, isn't it? This afternoon also, I tried very hard to share with you my PPT because my pride was involved. It was 50-50 of me wanting to show you a very good PowerPoint, and also me not wanting to shame myself as a teacher, because I did not want you all to think that I had not prepared myself. I have prepared myself, and I wanted to show you how I have prepared myself myself through my slides. But then it was clearly impossible for me at that point of time, because in order to be able to show you the slides through Zoom, I had to install a new software altogether, which I do not have in this particular computer. So therefore, I had to, I had to give my pride to Professor Manoj, and he is clearly more able to deal with technology. So now, thanks to Professor Manoj, you are able to see the slides. So like that, when the student has a responsibility to share his ideas in a classroom, when the teacher has given the responsibility, when the teacher no longer tries to act as the major authority in that classroom, the student now realizes that he cannot shame himself. He has a duty to do. While he has been given freedom to express his ideas, he has also been given duties. So that is how these things have become, these flipped classrooms have become common in today's world. Next slide, please. This is called TEAL, TEAL. Now, TEAL classrooms, I don't know whether you have heard of TEAL classrooms or not. In TEAL classrooms in India till now, it's sad that we cannot, make use of the TEAL classrooms. In TEAL classrooms, the classes are equipped with round tables. In a normal class that you see in everyday universities and colleges, there is a set of benches, or student sets where benches and tables are joined together. You see that you have the classroom sets, and you have the podium in front, or the lectern in front, where the teacher teaches, where she is, standing in her position and is teaching. So in that way, you do not experience what is being now experienced in many of the Western countries. And this teaching strategy is called TEAL. But remember, we don't necessarily need to have this kind of arrangement. We may not have the economical freedom to make these kinds of arrangements in our own institution, but we can always make adjustments. Let us remember that we can always make adjustments. In a TEAL classroom, the classes are equipped with round tables. So therefore, the concept of the students sitting respectfully before the teacher is erased from the outset. So you have multiple projectors where students may, sometimes share, or may sometimes see what is being shared by others. They have screens, the whiteboards are already there, and the podium will still be there with the ability to project all around the room. So that podium will not be the usual podium where the teacher stands and explains the things in his own whiteboard, that sort of thing. No, in a TEAL classroom. But remember, the TEAL classroom is highly digitized. It is highly digitized in the sense that you have multiple projectors working in that, where students may immediately automatically share what they want to. Each student will have the responsibility and also the freedom to share his slides immediately to his other friends. So in that way, active interaction is going on with the help of technology, and the concept of teacher having the ultimate I am the starting role, that attitude is taken care of by the simple arrangement of the classroom itself, and also by the possession of their own projectors by the students themselves. So sometimes the students can work in groups, and sometimes they work singly, and sometimes a student may also choose to work with the teacher himself or herself. So in that way, the TEAL classes are now common, but sad truth is that the universities and colleges in India, they are still, not very well equipped. And so therefore the TEAL classes are, I think, a dream that we can have. Let us hope that they will not be pipe dreams though. So The next slide, please. Effective teaching. You know, it is called effective teaching, which doesn't even look like a strategy, because we always want effective teaching, isn't it? So basically, even all of these that we are calling as strategies are also having an end. Remember, in the first few slides, I had spoken about the need for strategy, and strategy is to make our teaching effective, isn't it? I remember I said that. So effective teaching in itself is is uh, is a strategy in itself. So how do you make effective teaching? In effective teaching strategies, uh, this teacher may suddenly become silent. The teacher may suddenly raise his voice. The teacher may suddenly change the atmosphere, sometimes in the positive way, sometimes in a funny way, sometimes in the negative way also. Okay, so that he will be able to break down the monologue, the monotonous feeling that the students are already accustomed with. He will come again, spend 1 hour, he will go. The next will come again, spend 1 hour, she will go. That sort of thing is what enters the mind. And I'm sure that will be in your mind too, my dear participants, at this particular point of time. So these are this is because lectures are often characterized by monologues and slide presentations, typically in large halls with auditorium style fixed seatings that privileges content delivery over interaction and complex learning. Research shows that even small tweaks to lecture, like pauses, time for questions, and small group discussion, can promote higher level learning and refresh students' attention span. I remember reading in one very old Reader's Digest copy that the average attention span of an adult is 20 minutes. So if you will consider the length of time given to each period in a classroom, which uh, ranges from 45 minutes to 1 hour, you will see and understand that teaching, learning themselves go against the research findings that support that attention span is basically for 20 minutes. Beyond that, we start to drift off. I don't know whether you believe this or not, but I do. So in a setting like this, where you are in your remote locations, I am also in my own remote location, it is, clearly impossible to have this small group discussion. But in many of the faculty induction programs that we have coordinated, we have tried to set up this small group discussion by making our students uh, 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 group themselves into small groups where they can have a Google Meet, where they can share with each other. They can, they can not only share with each other, but they will also be able to, get rid of their inhibitions and give very, very honest feedbacks also. So these things can be made use of, and it is not just impossible, but very much possible if we want to, invest more time into that. So how do we make these strategies effective? We have discussed about we have discussed about flipped learning, we have discussed about teal, we have discussed about team teaching or team learning, and various other things also, including the age-old lecture system and the case study methods also. So how do we make these strategies effective? The number one way of making these effective is by knowing the students and the level of their understanding. Do we know our students well? do we understand them? How much do they understand? I remember when suddenly, because of some family emergency, a student in my son's school, I'm sorry, a teacher in my son's school had to suddenly take leave. And in her place, another person was installed. And without knowing the level of understanding of the students, she taught them mathematics, the level of which was a bit higher than the students' present ability. So she taught them about the concept of borrowing. She taught them about the concept of, subtraction through borrowing, addition through borrowing, which the students were really too young to understand or accept at that point of time. So the students' parents, they went to the principal to complain. Therein it was found out that the teachers had not shared the students' level of understanding, and that the teacher herself had not made any effort to understand what the students were able to understand that at that particular point or not. So therefore, there was a loss of communication between the students and the new teacher. And when the parents shared with the students, with the teachers, the students, their children's ability at that point of time, the teacher was then able to adjust herself, and the learning went on very, very smoothly from then on. Being aware of student psychology, understanding psychology is very, very important. We know that the study of the mind is what psychology is. So I don't know if we have any psychology teacher here among us, but he or she, more than most of us, will be able to explain to us the importance of understanding student psychology, especially if you are teaching in a college where the students are still fresh, where their minds and their bodies are still strong, and you are in your late 30s or in your late early 40s, and you're no longer very fresh. Sometimes there can be an imbalance between the teacher's ability to give and the student's ability to take. In this case, it's always very, very important to understand student psychology. Also, that will help you not just in classroom interaction, but also in the development of the timetable, so that a particular course can be given in the early morning and another may be given in the afternoon. Like that, it will ease your timetable making abilities, also knowledge of student psychology. And then the willingness to apply new knowledge in the area of teaching. Yes.
दोनों एक साथ नहीं होगा.
Professor Manoj, आपका आवाज आ रहे है.
Oh, madam.
So, willingness to apply new knowledge in the area of teaching. So, how do we apply new knowledge? I remember at the time, again, I will come to a very, very common example that all of us can identify with: the COVID times. So during the COVID times, for university and many of the college teachers, it was not difficult to make use of technology and resort to Zoom education or, Google Meet, teaching, learning, Google Meet, making use of, strategies like the Teach Mint or many other applications which are there through which you can make use of modern technology. But I did a small study with the help of our, government here in Mizoram, and I found that at the secondary level and at the elementary level, many of the teachers themselves did not know how to make use of the new technology. And forget about the students. I'm talking about the teachers only. They did not know how to apply it. And more than 5% of the teachers did not have. Remember, I'm talking about 2019, 2020. There were teachers, a very good percentage of teachers who did not know how to make use of the smartphone. They did not have the smartphone. And there were also a number of houses where there were no computers. And in that condition, the government was trying as its best to induce the emergency digital learning mode. I wish I had had more time, but today my idea is that I will let you leave early. But I would just like to stress on this a little bit more. In my state, what the government did was it created Wi-Fi islands, right? The government created Wi-Fi islands where students with their own mobile phones and their parents' mobile phones, you know, there are households in Mizoram where there is only one smartphone and the whole family has to share that. So in that condition, it was very, very difficult. However, the students, the parents also, they labored, and we could clearly, although we are not exactly 100% out of the woods yet, we know that at least 99, I think that may be too exaggerated, at least 90%. By 90%, we are out of the woods. We are free of COVID now, although very, very randomly, you will have positive patients now and then. But anyway, what was very much visible at that time was India was rather a good portion of Indian population were rather ignorant of the new knowledge regarding computers, regarding simple applications like Zoom, simple applications like Google Meet. So, and this to be happening to the parents and to the students is, although not all right, it's a little bit understandable, let us say. But for the teachers themselves to clearly opt in the questionnaire that I had sent out in my research, to opt that they were not willing to make use of this modern technology, that they did not think it would be useful for their teachers and for themselves. That was, I think, a very, very negative way of viewing calamities or emergencies. So in order to make strategies effective, the teachers have to be willing. Unless and until we are willing to apply new strategies, then we are still going to, resort to the age-old way of teaching. And in this, we will not be able to apply new knowledge in this area of teaching, and we will forever be behind when it comes to teaching, while the rest of the world are talking about classroom, teal classrooms, etc. When I talk about teal classrooms, I'm talking about the TEAL, teal classroom. So teachers should be willing to refresh themselves. And this is a very, very important thing. In many schools and institutions, teachers hardly find it necessary to refresh themselves. Teachers hardly find it necessary to learn about new things, because new textbooks are not coming, and I have this textbook by heart from backside to backside. So there is no use for me to read, to learn, or to prepare myself. But in many ways, I am telling you this, for example, this faculty induction program might run a bit boring for many of you. It did for me once upon a time when I was attending these kinds of programs. But later on, after 19 years, I have seen, suddenly out of the blue, something that was shared by a very senior professor, it would come to my mind. Something that was shared by a fellow participant came to my mind, and something that was discussed on that particular day during that refresher course came to my mind. And in that way, I have benefited so much. The other thing is, clearly you must be having your own groups. I'm hoping you have your own groups for this FIP also. Even after 9 years, even after 14 years, even after 19 years, nearly 20 years after I joined the university, I am still in connection with the friends with whom I attended my faculty induction program. And not only am I friends with them, I share this loving academic relationship with them. So whenever I need them, they are here for me. They give their lectures from their points of location to Mizoram University without having to come. And when they need something from my side, like the other Saturday, I gave a class in the refresher course organized by HRDC Calcutta, the University of Calcutta. So like that, without having to go to Kerala, I give a lecture for Kerala University, so on and so forth. They come to me, I go to them, and not just for lectures, for sharing of materials, for sharing of new ideas. I still go to them and they still come to me. And that is the benefit of teaching, not just the interaction that you get here with your resource person, but the interaction that you get with your fellow teachers, and the interaction that you are going to further share with your fellow teachers. By fellow teachers, I mean your friends who are also participating. So on that note, I am going to end my slide. Is there any question that you would like to take up regarding teaching strategies? Yes, this is very good from Dr. Shreya Mukhopadhyay. Usually some practical classes are conducted by two teachers. Yes, some practical classes are not only conducted by two teachers, but in many cases also they have this laboratory assistant who will always be there while the teacher explains. And not just by two teachers, in some cases you have all of the department faculty members coming into the laboratory and telling you about, telling you and explaining to you about the concepts, the scientific phenomena that are happening, that each teacher using his own personal specialization in that particular area can make use of. So many will not be able to, I'm seeing Professor Batindu. Sir, I don't know when you came in, but I always appreciate it when you are here. So good evening, sir.
Good
I'm
evening. Good
ending
evening.
yes, sir. I'm ending my lecture at this point of time. I don't know how much you heard, but in case you heard, at the beginning there was a hitch because I had forgotten my personal laptop in my car, which I left at the hospital today because of family emergency, and I'm making do with Professor Manoj's help. And an old laptop in my room that my sons are using to play with. But I'm hoping that the students, I'm sorry, not students, I'm hoping that our colleagues who are participating will be able to discern at least a bit with the help of Professor Manoj's sharing. So, dear participants, and to my colleagues and my senior, thank you so much for giving me this time this afternoon.
Yeah. So, thank you so much, madam. Even then you have family medical emergency and you rushing hospital, then you rush to the house, and somehow we managed today's session. So thank you so much for your, and I appreciate your commitment and the sincerity what you committed. So it is really very appreciable to work our colleague like this, no, your dedication and all. So thank you so much, madam. You are part of our Mizoram University and we are colleagues. So always you help us to running this different program in the HRDC. So thank you so much, madam. Yeah.
Thank you, sir. And
Yeah.
I truly appreciate your collaborative efforts. I was not able to share my slides, but because of you, the participants were able to see the slides. Thank you so much, Manoj, sir.
Yeah, madam. So, and dear participant, in this way, today's session we completed. As usual, tomorrow morning again we will meet. Okay, same time with the same energy level continue. Okay, so thank you so much, everyone.
Thank you. So may I leave the meet?
Yeah.
Yeah. And Professor Lynda, we'll be using your one more slot for you later on.
Please,
What
you
you raised.
that. Yes, please.
That will be with your laptop and your PPT.
Yes,
When,
my
when
very
you run your PPT yourself, that is more interactive and more insightful.
Exactly. That is very true. But I truly appreciate the fact that Professor Manoj has been so, cooperative with me throughout the day. When there was hardly 3 hours left, I had to make a call, a very, very emergency call. And then he said he was perfectly fine with it. And he just wanted to know whether I would be able to take the second session. And in that also, he told me very clearly that if I was not able to take the second session, he would understand. So that is the kind of person we have in our Deputy Director, HRDC. I think the university is very fortunate in having somebody so resourceful as Professor Manoj is, clearly. Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you, madam. Thank you.
Thank you to both and the participants also for understanding me. And on that note, may I leave the meet and have a good evening. Yes, thank you so much.
So, Professor Bhatandu sir.
Yes.